presidents, where do they come from? What's the background of our recent presidents? Where do they come? Well, Michael Medved, you know, is a film critic and a terrific guy, and he wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal that caught my attention about some of the background of recent presidents. Who were their fathers? Where did they come from? This will fascinate you. Andrea Garrett explains.
The pattern includes George H.W. Bush, 41st President of the United States. Born into a family of means and privilege, he is the son of Prescott Bush, a U.S. Senator from Connecticut. The 42nd president was from a very different background. Bill Clinton's biological father was killed in a car crash before he was born, and young Bill later endured the drinking and battering of his stepfather, Roger Clinton. By contrast, the second President Bush was heir to the Bush political dynasty. He in turn was succeeded in office by Barack Obama, another president with no relationship with his biological father. Barack Sr. separated from the family before his infant son's first birthday. The 2012 election will likely continue the odd tradition that began a quarter-century ago. Rick Santorum and Ron Paul are the only serious GOP contenders left who come from average, middle-class, two-parent backgrounds. Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich, however, each come from opposite ends of the family spectrum. Romney is the son of a famous politician, three-term Michigan Governor George Romney, while Gingrich never knew his biological father, who abandoned Newt's teenage mother within days of Newt's birth. Author and radio host Michael Medved writes about this strange dichotomy and what it says about the candidates, the types of campaigns they run, and about the voters who put them in office.
Michael Medved. Michael, do you have to have a drunk for a father in order to be president? Is that what you're saying?
Well, recently, if you take a look at all of our elections going back for 30 years, back to 1988, everyone who has won the presidency has either been from a no-father background, where you just didn't know your birth father at all, or a famous father background. And I think that what this reflects, and this is fascinating to me, Pat, is how things have changed. The demands right now of running for president are so extreme. You have to start from so far back and devote yourself to it and raise millions and millions of dollars. What it creates is a demand for candidates who have some kind of sense of entitlement. Either they're restoration candidates, like I'm living up to a family tradition, or they're candidates who are leading peasant rebellions, who feel that they've somehow been anointed to sort of shake things up because they have no father, no family traditions themselves. We have
a president now. His father, I think you said, died as an alcoholic. He was a radical socialist, and he abandoned the kid when he was a year old. So he really had no father.
No, he only spent 10 days. His father came to visit when Obama was 9 years old. And he only spent 10 days with his father in his whole life, and that's it. And then his stepfather was also terribly abusive and had a bad relationship. And by the time that Obama was 8 years old, he just didn't have any father figure in his life at all. He was living with his grandparents. And this kind of pattern, and you see it in the contrast between Romney and Gingrich, which I think is also fascinating. Because Romney, of course, like you, Pat, I mean, I know that your father was a United States Senator and a great public servant and someone you greatly admired.
That's right.
Obviously, Mitt Romney idolizes his dad, who was a very popular governor and a cabinet member under Richard Nixon. And this kind of extreme pattern, you saw that with President Bush. President Bush idolized his father, the first President Bush. What is peculiar is that Rick Santorum's dad was a psychologist, actually. I mean, I know a lot of people think he comes from a blue-collar background. His father was a PhD, worked for the Veterans Administration.
I thought he was a steel worker.
No. That's the grandfather. Okay. That's the grandfather.
All right.
It's like my father was also a PhD, and my grandfather was a barrel maker. So yeah. I guess it's parallel to Santorum. So we're not eligible to run for president.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're ruled out, Michael. Well, what about Newt? I mean, apparently this guy really had something terrible. His father was a drunk. He left him. What was it? He was.
Newt's mother was 17 when he was born.
Yeah.
And his birth father was named Newton Leroy McPherson. And he left about less than a month after Newt was born. It was literally just days. And Newt never knew him. By the way, Gerald Ford, of all people, had the same background. His real name was Leslie Lynch King, Jr. But Mr. King, who was his birth father, just disappeared. And then he was later adopted by Gerald Rudolph Ford and took the name. This pattern among our presidents is really relatively new.
What about Ronald Reagan? Reagan's father, he was an alcoholic, wasn't he? What was he?
He was, but the family stayed together. Nixon's father was a bitter man and a difficult man. I mean, what's so peculiar about this, again, is these different types of father backgrounds predispose candidates to run different types of campaigns. I call them peasant rebellion campaigns versus restoration campaigns. And that idea of trying to get America back to normal or back to a better situation than we used to be in, that comes naturally to candidates like a Mitt Romney or a George W. Bush, who come from famous fathers. Whereas a peasant rebellion campaign, I'm going to shake things up and change everything, that comes more naturally to a Barack Obama or to a Newt Gingrich. The problem for Obama is right now he's running as an incumbent. So how can he run a peasant rebellion campaign except by trying to blame Republicans for everything that's wrong with the country?
Well, you know, I've had a chance to talk on a couple of occasions at length with Richard Nixon. Nixon was a brilliant guy, a brilliant strategist, amazing man, but he had a mean streak in him, and there was something that was just kind of a lower class. I mean, his mother, I think, was a Quaker, wasn't she? What was his father?
His father was a Methodist, but not a devout Methodist. And his father was very frustrated in life. He ran a little gas station. You can see at the Nixon Library, they've moved the tiny little home in which the 4 Nixon boys grew up. And one of the things, character is fate. I think Heraclitus said that more than 2,000 years ago. And what's fascinating to me is looking at this background and who knows to what extent a president's inner demons, and you saw that with Richard Nixon, are determined by a very unhappy father.
One last question, Michael. This is so intriguing. We've got probably 2 leading candidates. One would be Mitt Romney. The other would be Barack Obama, who is the incumbent. What do you see their inner demons, their background doing to shape the course of America in these next 4 years, assuming one or the other is elected?
Well, you see, to run for president, you have to feel some kind of sense of entitlement. And Mitt Romney feels that sense of entitlement because of his family background. Barack Obama, and you can see this in his behavior, feels that sense of entitlement because he feels almost personally anointed. He feels a sense of his own destiny, which means that I think with Mitt Romney, it's far more predictable where he's going to go. What we've seen with Barack Obama is this sense of his own greatness, of his own world-changing factor and abilities. That comes very naturally to a kid who never had a relationship with a real father.
Unbelievable. Fascinating, Michael. I appreciate it. Write some more about it. We'll look avidly at the next installment.
Thanks so much, Pat. God bless.
All right. Terry, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's interesting. The jury's still out for me on what the conclusion of all of that is, but it's fascinating.
These guys, alcoholic fathers, abandoned. We've got a guy in the White House who was abandoned by his father. A guy was an alcoholic, was a socialist. Reagan had a drunk for a father. Clinton didn't much know his. His mother was a veteran gambler and
the end result of it all is I think, different for each person. You know, Reagan was a great leader and really seemed to have a sense of purpose and focus and direction. I mean, I don't know that you can say that.
You can't count out the mothers. Mothers have a tremendous impact on sons, in case you didn't notice that.
Well, and we all have a tremendous opportunity to make our own choices.
Hey, yeah, but
we are influenced by where we come from.
Extraordinarily so. All right, fascinating just to figure it out. Okay.